And so, yeah, we're going nostalgic with this one. 4:3 aspect ratio, carpet vision, and I've got everything as brightened as I can get right now. So, yeah. All right, here's the deal with the live stream. It's been a long time since I've done this, and I think I only ever did it twice, maybe 3 times. But I like to keep these very informal. So basically, just I'll be taking your questions on pretty much anything archive related, and I'll also just kind of tackle whatever catches my fancy in the comments. Uh, be respectful, common sense stuff, you know. But anyway, I guess I should start taking some questions now. So let's see what I get here. Again, there's about a 15-second delay. Question, how long is my hair? About 3 months longer, because I haven't had a haircut since I've been here. It just hasn't happened. I've been so busy since I've been here trying to do archives, still trying to fix things up around here. I could go on forever about that. And it just hasn't happened. So, and I meant to grow it out a little more because, you know, you get a haircut regularly and it gets a teeny bit shorter each time, and I meant to kind of grow it back out to where it had been. And I've sailed right past that. So, yeah, that's something that needs to happen. Okay, any more installments on public domain VHS DVD or any VHS vault for that matter from Gino Cuddy? And you may know Gino. He was the guy that hijacked me during the last public domain video episode. And honestly, I haven't been looking lately, so I guess if I find stuff, if something catches my attention. But honestly, I haven't really thought about that subject in a while. VHS vault, I have one in the works. I'm just finishing working on it, and that'll be, I think, actually next week, come to think of it. So you got that to look forward to. And if you liked the one on bully prevention, I think you'll like this one too. So what else have we got here? You ever going back to beautiful downtown Aurora? Maybe. One of my brothers still lives in not Highlands Ranch, where is that? Greenwood Village. Just a hair south of Denver, immediately south of Denver. So if I need to visit him, yeah, I guess I'll have to. Somebody hears the laptop fan. Yeah, the laptop that I've got overheats pretty easily, so unfortunately you're going to have to live with that. And I also wanted to use my regular microphone, but I can't make it work nice with this laptop without just overdoing what it can handle, because it's just not that powerful. So unfortunately we're stuck with the built-in mic on the laptop here. Let's see here. Nice air raid siren. Yeah, get used to it. Will I ever consider doing an episode about dial-up internet? Technically, that's kind of beyond my reach, but I might do like the nostalgic stuff, Prodigy, AOL, something like that at some future date. Let's see. What is the Oddity Archive? My understanding is that it's a very tasty pastry. Let's see here. Will I consider a face reveal? Isn't this a face reveal? I mean, you see my face, don't you? Right? Let's see here. Do I have an archive want list? Yes, but it hasn't been updated in a long time. It's on oddityarchive.com in the forums. I think it's under the oddities section of the forums. But the forum is down half the time. My web host, whatever you want to call that, is just not that reliable. Let's see here. What else have we got? Do I collect new albums on vinyl? If so, what is my most recent purchase? I don't do new vinyl. I was actually going to buy a reissue of Tom Waits' first album not long before I left Denver, but then the reviews started coming out and they were really, really bad. So I had actually ordered it and I canceled the order and I wound up having to Flea an old copy. So yeah, my limited experience with new vinyl has just not been good. I think it was the Loudness Wars episode. I played a bit of a fairly recent Elton John album, and they just used the super hyper compressed CD master for it, and the volume levels are really low on it, strangely enough, and really terrible, terrible vinyl quality. Some of the worst I have ever heard. What was the most difficult part of moving from beautiful downtown Aurora and the thrift stores? I miss the thrift stores. The ones here are absolutely terrible. I've had a few minor finds, and actually I'm going to cover this in an archive thrifting episode in a few weeks. But ever since I've been here, I've been finding CEDs, the capacitance electronic discs, for some reason. And I've only picked up a few because I generally don't collect them unless it's something unique or still sealed, a demo disc, yeah, that sort of stuff. But I'm going to be working on that. I think the archive thrifting episodes may become, unfortunately, a bit less frequent. Not that they were all that frequent in the first place. I did, 3 of them back in Colorado? Okay, let's see here. Despite the loudness war, do you buy new CDs often or prefer streaming/downloads for daily listening? I'm still a hard copy sort of guy. I still do CDs. Pretty much all the streaming I do, I might pull something up on YouTube to listen to it, but that's really about the extent of it. I like the uncompressed sound, uncompressed data, best of all. And I'm still a sucker for the artwork and stuff, so yeah, I still do. I hate how this reverses the image. I still do CDs. You can see them every day. Let's see here. Have you heard of a channel called Local 58? It's like if the archive was an analog horror channel. Never heard of that. Let's see here. Most terrifying experience at a thrift store. I mentioned this in the State of the Archive video I did not long before I left Denver. And somebody tried to start a fist fight with me in a thrift store back in January or February. I was standing at about maybe twice the width of my bookshelf, a display of CDs, and I was looking at them, and somebody just came up right in front of me, and as he was doing that, I was reaching for a CD, and as I wasn't going to let him get away with it, I was still going to grab the CD, but I did that, and he turned around and he started cursing me out and got right in my face, and yeah, just a real sweetheart. That was one of the many reasons that I wound up leaving Colorado, because crap like that was happening a lot. I also had somebody run over my leg with a shopping cart at a thrift store. I was on my knees going through a bin of records, and some jerk just ran over me with their cart, ran over my leg. And when I called them out, they pretended not to speak English. I don't know how you missed that. But let's see here. Would I ever consider collaborating with another YouTuber for a video about something weird and obsolete? Yeah, I probably would. I generally don't like doing collaborations just because they're always such a logistical nightmare. And, you know, if another tech channel or maybe a music reviewer or somebody asked me to help out, I might give them something to work with. I don't know if I would be seeking out the collaborators, but yeah. And there was one here that I missed. Am I going to make another Sergey's Catacomb of Classics? You'd have to ask Sergey. He's kind of a prima donna about that stuff. Yeah, I'd imagine he will at some point. I don't know when. Those things don't get a whole lot of views, and I know that really brings Sergey down. Let's see here. What do I think of Apple Mask? I am not familiar with that. Let's see here. Have I thought about doing a video on interactive phone-controlled video games that aired live on TV? I think I've only ever seen a couple of them. Somebody linked me one from England, I think from the mid-late 90s, like some sort of home shopping hybrid thing. It was kind of weird. Topics like that tend to hinge on, can I find an episode's worth of a like topic or two smaller topics to build an episode out of? So that's kind of why I haven't done like another emergency broadcast salute. It's just, you find it, and even then that might not work. That makes sense, didn't it? Let's see here. Hey buddy, how did your relocation go? It was rough. It was very rough. I discussed it in the first episode I did here, about the first 10 minutes of it, and that's all true. That was not an exaggeration. The torrential rains and the crappy motel and the state fair in Nebraska, all that really happened. So go watch episode 152, I think that was. Let's see here. Hey Ben, are you aware of the September 20th National EAS test? I am now. Every time one of those happens, I get something from viewers. It's amazing how up some of you guys are on that. And I've recorded, I think, all of them, but they've been so completely uneventful that I just have the DVDs, and I never post the actual test because it's so completely unremarkable. There just hasn't been another one like there was back in 2011. But if it does happen, hopefully I'll have recorded it. Ben, did you ever check if that early DiscoVision disc side was playable on your earliest Laserdisc player? Can't remember which disc it was. That was the Tom Sawyer disc. And I had to get rid of a few things when I moved, and unfortunately I had to get rid of my 1987 Pioneer just to lighten the load a little, because all my electronics went in those big U-Haul small electronics boxes, but a lot of them were heavy enough that I didn't dare put more than one or two in there, and of course I bundled them up in bubble wrap like a crazy person, and I think I kind of single-handedly destroyed the environment this summer from that stuff. But yeah, I'm actually looking into another Laserdisc player. I've got a few models that I'm looking at, and I'd like to make that my main Laserdisc player, so that could happen. An older one, maybe if I find one in the wild or cheap on Flea. And I saw another one that said, why do I call it Flea? Because I have a lot of problems on Flea. When I swear about half the time I order something and it doesn't show up, it's broken, I have an uncooperative seller, I get sent the wrong thing, I have to fight like hell for a refund, so I've been calling it Flea, just backhandedly. Have I considered doing an episode on older vintage cameras, kind of similar to what you did with the PXL 2000, but cameras like Polaroids and film cameras? Well, cameras just aren't really my department, so it's one of those things that I could kind of do it academically, but I think I'd get in a lot of trouble for not really knowing it, because some people just live for that stuff. The only camera thing I've been looking for is, it's called the Tyco Video Cam. It's from the 90s, and it would just be a Ben's junk, and I'd have to find one cheap, because it's not a very deep thing. But you hook it up to the VCR, and it basically runs like the old Cartravision or early Betamax camcorders, you know, that kind of stuff. And so I'd like to do that one, but like I said, it would be a pretty superficial Ben's jump. I just don't think I could say much of anything too deep about it. What is my favorite Laserdisc in my collection? I got a lot of them. Some of my favorites, I love my little 8-inch Pioneer music video EPs. I've got a few of those. And I actually just got one very recently. It was Stevie Nicks, a compilation of her music videos. And I actually just found on Flea again, I was the only bidder, $2. If you remember what was that called? The Archive Treasure Hunt, Great Archive Treasure Hunt episode, $1 Million Mystery with Eddie Deason. I actually found that one. So I haven't gotten around to watching it yet, but yeah, I got a lot of favorites. Some of the ones I have that I tried so hard to collect of silent movies way back when, but they've all been reissued now, so I still have a certain pride in them. And I have all the Elvira Midnight Madness Laserdiscs too. I'm pretty proud of that. Anyway, let's see what else here. How often do I go to flea markets? Okay, well, here's the thing. Back in Colorado, we had the Mile High Flea Market, and that was year-round, weekends and Wednesdays. And there's a flea market of sorts here, but it only runs 8 months out of the year, one weekend out of each month. So a grand total of 16 days out of the year, weather permitting. And the first one of the new season was just last week. And so like I said, 8 months out of the year. So it does not happen in May, June, July, August. And I went to the first one of the season last weekend, and it was a little underwhelming, but I do have what will be an archive thrifting with footage from that coming out in a few weeks. And the flea market here was, well, the one back in Denver was weird because it was like costume jewelry and turkey legs at the one back in Denver, so I didn't really go to that much. But here it was more like what you would think a flea bay would traditionally be like, albeit completely lacking in techie stuff. So it wound up being all, for me, the stuff that interests me, like records and stuff like that, books. So let's see here. What kind of movies am I into? Do I like cult cinema, or am I more of a mainstream classics guy? I like them both. I did a Ben's junk on my now, at the time, only one printer paper box full of cult VHS tapes. Featuring real classics like Nice Girls Don't Explode. And I've got 2 of them now, and I need to find my copy of what is that, Blood Feast from the 60s. I had forgotten I had that, and I need to share the cover of that thing. It's just terrible. Let's see here. Am I doing any more infomercial type episodes? I have 2 infomercial product commercials in the arsenal now. It's just an issue of accruing enough for an episode. And the thing about those is that it takes between 15 and 25 commercials for an episode. So again, it's one of those things that just has to slowly build up over time. Let's see here. Hey Ben, now that you're a ham radio or a ham, have you ever attended any ham fests yet? There haven't been any that I'm aware of. I have not touched my ham stuff since I've been here, actually. And my CB stuff, I had to get rid of my antenna before I left Denver. I just couldn't find a safe space with them, and they were all magnetic, and so I didn't want them getting mixed up with any of the other electronics or media or stuff, so I wound up having to get rid of those and ship them off to Goodwill. So I'm going to have to replace those. I am curious to hear it around here, because I see a lot more guys with the CB antennas on the roofs of their cars around here. Let's see. How has the AT-LP 120 been holding up? So far, so good. I just had it on yesterday. I found some 78s at the flea market, and I was just getting around to testing those yesterday. And it's still working, still knocking away, and yeah, knock on wood. Have I acquired a Playboy CED yet? No, but I haven't really been looking either. Let's see. Newest album in my collection. Well, if you count the stuff I bought at the flea market, it was, I think, mostly stuff that I already had in some way, shape, or form. Oh, I know. There's a compilation, and you'll see this in the thrifting video, of Sioux Falls-based garage bands from 1965 to 67, and I found that when I was out thrifting, and so I guess you could say it's new to me. As far as new music goes, I don't remember. I know Graham Parker's got a new album coming out sometime soon, and John Prine had one just before I left Denver, but I haven't picked that up yet. I was actually considering asking for it for Christmas or something if I don't get around to that one. Let's see. What's my opinion on DVD recorders and other transfer techniques? God, this thing is jumpy. I use it for off-air recordings nowadays, and I have no issue with it. I don't know if I really quite grasp the question. Do I play Roblox? No, I don't. I don't play much of anything. The only thing I've played since I've been here is I hooked up the 3DO and the Philips CDI to make sure they still worked. I still have not hooked up any of my other consoles since I've been here. I've got a massive pile of boxes still clogging up the hallway, and again, just so much that needs fixed around here, and so much trying to get archive really back on track again, and just things have been falling by the wayside for me personally lately. Let's see. Thoughts on 4K HDR since we found... I hate the way this thing jumps. Since you found out that I had a 4K setup, I only just finished ironing the kinks out of it. I finally found the settings that I like most on it, and sometimes I still have to play with it when I'm watching, especially if it's an old analog thing hooked up like Laserdisc or a tape-based format. And the biggest problem has been audio latency. So my big thing has been there's an optical output on the TV, and I've been running that. So it basically just relays stuff. And the only stuff I do directly into my AV receiver now is the 4K Blu-ray machine. And I've got that to the point where the latency is minimal. So it's been kind of frustrating, and I don't think... I didn't find out about the audio latency thing until after I tried to play one of my old video games on it. So that would explain why I did even worse than usual. Let's see. All hail the bacon here. You can thank that light over there. I've got every light that I got doing this, and it's still pretty dim looking on screen here. But anyway, before I take any more questions, I want to remember this moment. So, smile, everybody. Hey, you're flipping me off. Cut that out. Okay, in 3, 1, 2. Oh, how do I turn on the flash on this stupid thing? There we go, because nobody's going to see this otherwise. All right, in 3, 1, 2. You with the finger. 1, 2, 3. Lovely. I want to treasure this. All right, where was I? Favorite aesthetic for AV equipment? As in the equipment itself, or the playback? I'll get back to you on that. Follow me up on that. Let's see here. What's my favorite Steely Dan record / song? In the top 10 albums thing I did at one point, I said Countdown to Ecstasy was one of my all-time favorite albums. So there's that. And probably King of the World off of that one, which I referenced on Protect and Survive, actually. Let's see. What is the worst Laserdisc in my collection from a technical standpoint? I've got a laser karaoke candidate that is very badly rotted. And that's about the worst I can think of offhand. Do I listen to Rammstein? No, not really. I'm not really a metal person. My history of metal kind of ends around 1982. My idea of metal is Mountain, Black Sabbath, Blue Oyster Cult, AC/DC, and even that, some of that's debatable whether or not that's actually metal. Let's see. Have I ever heard of the Magic Mouse magazine? No, I have not. Let's see. Benny Boy, I'm a bit of a watch connoisseur. What kind of watch do I wear in my videos? This is an old Citizen watch that I've had since I was a teenager. I've been wearing this for going on 20 years now. It's probably time for a new one. I've replaced the band on it a million times. The face is all chipped to hell, and it doesn't seem to hold a battery charge too well anymore. It seems to die on me every 2 or 3 months, but hopefully sometime in the next few months I can get a new one. I like this old watch, but it's getting to the point where it's such a maintenance hog that it's probably getting time. Let's see here. What is my opinion about the current state of broadcast radio? Some people say it's a dying medium with streaming services on the rise, but many rural states still have really good local radio. And I got your email earlier on Core Enterprises, and I will listen to that air check that you sent me. I've been liking the radio a lot more here than I did in Denver. It's a lot less corporate. I've been listening to, I think you can find this online, it's KISD, based out of Pipestone, Minnesota. And it's oldies, but it's a lot more deep cuts than you normally hear on an oldies station. So I've been kind of attached to that one. Do I have a favorite broadcast standard? I say there's a charm in 625 line PAL personally. I do like how stable PAL is. I am not going to argue that. And I've got a couple of PAL DVDs that just look wonderful. And so sometimes I kind of have my issues with good old not twice the same color NTSC. That's, yeah. CCAM, there's an oddity. And I still have that multi-system VCR that does CCAM, and I have never acquired any CCAM tapes. I'm going to have to do that. Speaking of PAL, I've been trying to get my hands on some PAL off-air tapes and take care of those on my multi-system VCR and try and do an American perspective on the European stuff, but it hasn't happened yet. Thoughts on high-res audio? If you're referring to like 24-bit, it's kind of above the threshold of human hearing, so I think it's a bit of snake oil. And what's the thing in Japan where if you do the math, it's actually lossy compared to a standard CD? So I haven't done that, and of course that's another thing, money. Some of the stuff that I'd like to cover is so expensive that I just can't afford it. Will we ever see another Oddity Archive After Dark style episode in the same vein as American Ecstasy? Probably not, because good old U-Boob has gotten so, no pun intended, has gotten so weirdly selectively puritanical, and they're always given all this garbage about, like whenever I upload something, I think this happens to most people now, but do I have children in my video? Are they being exploited? and they're flagging my videos just on the titles, no matter how innocuous the title. So, it just drives me crazy. Probably not, unfortunately. Not a question, just wanted to say you're one of my many inspirations on my YouTube journey. I can't think of any more questions. Well, that's okay. I can't think of any more answers. And I know I've missed a ton of questions here, so if I haven't answered it, feel free to try it again, and I'll see if I can't do this. What is my favorite Ripoff record label? QMO, probably. Either that or good old TEJ, Tin-Eared Junk. And what's the Fantastic F's? I have a lot of favorites. As permitted, here goes again. Will I be covering Pioneer's Laser Jukebox with its 8-inch laser discs? I've never seen that device. Is that really a thing? I've never seen that. And with my luck, it would be out of my league, and only somebody like Techmoan would be able to tackle that. Yeah, he sort of covers a lot of the stuff that I can't afford. Let's see here. Thoughts on the Weather Channel's WeatherStar 3000, 4000, and XL? Not a Weather Channel aficionado, so I can't really answer that one. I don't even really know what those are. Lost Oddity episodes, Oddity Archive episodes come back, blocked ones at least, specifically episode 30. Well, I re-edited episode 30 and reissued it over the summer. I don't think there are any missing ones right now. There's a lot that I've had to re-edit, but there aren't any straight-up missing episodes that I can think of offhand. What is my least favorite 80s song? What's that Pia Zadora song? The monkey in the middle, the clapping song, isn't that it? Yeah, that one's just terrible. Do I have any other Bee Gees albums outside of the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack? I've got a cassette of an older greatest hits from before the disco era that I bought on cassette. Sorry about that, I'm being redundant here. Which I bought at a Kmart when I was like 12 years old. As far as the albums go, I have Spirits Having Flown. And I think that's it. I don't find many Bee Gees albums. Got the greatest hits, another greatest hits, that is. Let's see. What format do I transfer records and tapes to? Well, I do it into the CD burner. So, yeah, whatever that is, CDA, I think is the name of the format. What sort of internet provider do I have out in Sioux Falls? It is called, Comcast owns 49% of them, so it's still dangerously on the edge of Comcast. But it's called Mid-Continent here. And they're so-so. Well, they're about as much fun to put up with as Comcast, actually. Let's see. Ben, are you ever going to make your own playlists? Probably not. There just aren't enough hours in the day. But I know I've got my good viewers that do that. The only list I maintain is on oddityarchive.com. I keep a full episode guide on there. So if you're looking for a specific episode, oddityarchive.com. Let's see. Thoughts on the new Paul McCartney album? Haven't heard it. Have I listened to any other compilations from Madison? I have one more that was in the record Ripoff's file, excuse me. And it didn't make the cut. I don't remember what it was. It had to have been another movie thing from the 90s. Outsider Music and El Touchy. Still longing for that episode. El Touchy may be a final episode sort of thing. I'm kind of on the fence about that. And then I still would like to get my hands on a copy of the original 74 pressing, I think is when it came out. There have been reissues, But yeah, I will cover El Touchy, barring anything catastrophic, at some point in the future. I think it's the only thing in the opening theme that I haven't covered yet. Let's see. Will I do an episode on Mr. Microphone? That would be kind of a Ben's junk sort of thing. If I find one in the wild, preferably. I've been running up a hell of a Flea bill since I've been here. Thoughts on Kiln House, Bare Trees, Fleetwood Mac? Love Bare Trees. That may be my favorite Fleetwood Mac album. That's the one I keep coming back to. I like Peter Green too, and I like Buckingham Nicks, but yeah, it's that Bare Trees, that Bob Welch, Danny Kirwan stuff that I tend to come back to the most. Let's see. Have I heard about 16 RPM records? Yes, and I found one once, and it was at an antique store back in Colorado, and they wanted like $50 for it. I don't remember what it was, but obviously I didn't get it, and I have no way of playing it. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I didn't do the butter stick in the opening. Oh well, but it's not in the opening anymore. It hasn't been there in a long time. Gil Graves, ever think you'll use the content I sent for an episode or riff? I don't remember what you sent. You go ahead and type that in, and I'll see if it rings any bells. I've got a pretty good backlog of stuff, and sometimes stuff just doesn't make the cut. Like, somebody sent me what looked so promising. It was a 10-tape set of what I thought were Kroger supermarket training videos, but it was really some woman giving a seminar, and it's sort of amusing in very small doses. It's mainly her just grousing about the younger generation, but it's nothing that I was able to use. Unfortunately, they weren't interesting enough on that seminar front, but they also weren't, real training videos. I'm going to have to rephrase my question. What's your favorite Buckingham Nicks Fleetwood Mac album? Probably Tusk. Let's see. I sent the DVD-R with the Blockbuster safety training tape, amongst other things. I don't remember that. I don't think I've got anything like that. Shoot me an email at oddityarchive@gmail.com. I don't know what happened with that. I don't remember. I think I'd remember that. It's not ringing any bells. Which episode of Archive am I most disappointed in? Well, there was one last year. I was working on the Telescene episode, and it took so long to make that I had to put it on the back burner and had to quickly hammer out another episode in the interim, and that was on Palm Pilots, and I just hated that thing. I had to fold the history lesson into the Ben's Junk segment, and it was just it was terrible. Let's see, Zalyanovsky, you like him? Yes, I do, and I have his one and only solo album knocking around this collection somewhere. More riffing training tapes, question mark. I don't have any. Maybe I'll do another one sometime. I've got a lot of riffy stuff in the pipeline right now, and I need to do some tech stuff in there to keep that pendulum swinging around. Let's see. What is my favorite episode of Archive that I enjoyed making of this season so far? Yeah, they've all been kind of fraught with problems. The painless one so far was the one I did on Music Career Volume 2, except for having to relive Anything Can Happen just for your amusement. Let's see. When will we see Ben for president? President of what? Have I ever thought about going back and having a redo for some of my earlier videos with updated info? I have, but when it comes right down to it, there's not enough to update it with to make it worth my while, so I just let them stand. Let's see. Talk about Pavan. Okay. I will on whenever the final music career one is. But I will tell you this much. One of the last projects, an unrealized project that I was working on, was going to be an all-instrumental record, and it was going to be about old sheet music with either made for songs for silent films or with pictures of stars, the stars on the covers, and there'd be a few originals sprinkled in there. And the band actually stemmed from an original piece that I had started working on. How many CDs and vinyls, vinyls, do I own? Oh, I'd say between 3,000 and 4,000. If you add everything up, CDs, records, cassettes, 8 tracks, reel-to-reel, the whole ball of wax. Somewhere, I wish I had a number. I think it's somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 now. Is there anything else to say about Kid Pick's Happy Hamster? Yes, there is. And I have not been able to get my hands on all the tapes. I have found that there are 6 unique Happy Hamster segments out there. So the Kid Picks wraparounds and then a series for another series of trailers, this time hosted by Happy Hamster instead of Grandpa Munster. And I've only acquired 2 of them so far, but if I can get all 5 of them, yeah, it's going to be Happy Hamster redo. What are my thoughts about Nintendo getting ROMs taken down for their games? You mean the old games? I didn't know there was anything like that going on, actually. I am so not up on video game stuff, it's terrifying. Let's see. Episode on 3D broadcasting in the future. I'd like to. One thing that I'd kind of like to cover, it would have to be part of a greater episode, would be the infamous Svengoolie and Elvira 3D episodes from 82, 83, but it's finding them, and ideally I'd have to find, I wouldn't have to, but I'd like to, again, ideally find the glasses, like you go to 7-Eleven and you could buy them for 50 cents or something. I'm probably botching the story, but yeah, if I can find that stuff and I can build up enough of it to build an episode out of. Have I ever found a Sega Genesis copy of Night Trap? Didn't know it had ever come out on Sega Genesis. I have yet to find a copy of Night Trap in the wild, at least, at all. Why was the Dean Boca 12 so bad? My electric 12 string? I don't remember. The neck was warped on it, and I had it adjusted at one point. It's still a tad off, but it's not a priority right now. Thoughts on power pop music? I like the classics. I like Badfinger, Raspberries, kind of sort of Big Star. I'm not a huge Big Star fan, but certainly the classic stuff. Cheap Trick, yeah, I'm good with that stuff. How do I choose which stills made it into the Oddity Archive opening? In more recent, well, initially, it was stuff I either just thought was odd or stuff I wanted to cover, and over time it's just been kind of what I felt the greatest hits are of Archive, and I've just been folding them in over time. So, yeah, I wish it were deeper than that. Ever thought of doing an episode on Soviet broadcasting? I think I have seen exactly 2 bits of Soviet broadcasting, and they didn't really sink into me. Of course, it doesn't help that I don't speak a word of Russian. Do I like dill pickles? No, I don't like pickles at all. What's my favorite MST3K episode? It would be a toss-up between Mitchell and Overdrawn at the Memory Bank. Those are the ones I tend to come back to the most. Can I make any videos on dead satellites that have started transmitting again? Look up HappySat. It has a list of them. It would make for an interesting episode. Okay. I haven't really thought about satellites much beyond the Wild Feeds, and I've only ever found one tape of Wild Feeds. So, I guess I don't have a good answer for you on that. I'll have to look up Happy Sat and see what catches my attention. Not a question, but I wanted to thank you for the videos. Been a subscriber for years, and just wanted to say thanks for the entertainment. You're welcome. I always love hearing messages like that. Sometimes you get so detached doing this, and sometimes I'll come out and say the assholes can really take over in the comments section at times. So, yeah, I needed that. Thank you. Well, I do a commentary on the Cube episode, specifically mentioning how MTV and Nickelodeon came from the service. I hadn't thought about it, and of course there's always that issue of, do I have enough to talk about to get me through at least most of the episode when I do commentaries? And it's reached a point where I've been filling the episodes with the information to the point where I don't feel a need to do a commentary, so I just haven't been doing them in quite some time now. What's my most watched episode? I assume Max Headroom. That was it for the longest time. I assume it still is. I don't go digging through my YouTube back catalog too often. Have I ever found any quadriplex tape? Nope. It'd be cool to have, but I'd have to ship it off to somebody else to have it transferred, because I don't think I'd get my hands on any 2-inch machines. And if I did, it would be bigger than this whole place. Let's see. Can I post the Wild Feed tape I just mentioned to Oddity Archive Annex? I'd kind of like to use it in an episode at some point. It would probably have to be scoped, because it's NBC footage, and there's some major movies and TV shows in there, so yeah, that would have to get cut up. I never did transfer it. I got that kicking around one of my off-air VHS boxes. Ever heard of Ham TV, Amateur TV? Yes, I have, and I just haven't been able to really look into it. And again, I tend to only chase subjects right now that I feel like I have a good shot of making an archive episode with, or stuff that I can just add a little piece to the pile and eventually build an episode out of it. Oh, follow-up to the question about aesthetics and AV equipment. How it looks, brushed metal or wood paneling. I've never been into how they look, really, honestly. It's only been more recently that I've started to think about that stuff, because, like, if it's an episode with cassette tapes, I like having the VU meters, because if I run out of pictures of the tape or artwork to show, then at least you can see the pretty needles going back and forth. But I really don't think about that sort of stuff. I'm always concerned with the performance over how it looks. Let's see, bit of a stretch question, but do I watch any anime? Just never gotten into anime. Not my thing. Nintendo is taking legal actions against ROM sites because they host NES games all the way up to GameCube games, which threatens the archival of Nintendo games. Okay. I can see where people would get upset about that. But aren't they starting to reissue old games? I know old what's the name of that site that reissues old DOS games and stuff? I've heard LGR talk about them a few times. I think they're going to be getting into the reissue business soon. Ever going to do an episode on DVD and its lifespan? Well, DVD is still going on. I may misinterpret this. It's still a going concern, isn't it? And I haven't heard of DVDs failing yet, or DVD-Rs failing yet. All my DVDs, I have them going back to 1997, and they're all still fine. Granted, as of the last time I looked. And all my oldest DVD-Rs are just fine, so, yeah. What is my favorite defunct house brand of electronics, i.e. realistic from Radio Shack? Well, aren't house brands usually just rebranded major brands? And FYI, to link two things you mentioned, most CCAM usage was Eastern Bloc, So if you ever delve into off-air CCAM, you'll probably end up with a lot of Soviet TV. Good to know. And I also need to remind myself to find a CCAM little converter doohickey. I've got one for PAL, but not one for CCAM. Do I have a weather radio? Yes, I do. I have an old Philips, I think it is, that I got when I was a teenager, and I don't really use it. It's in a box right now. I brought it with me. It's one of those things that I feel like, well, I could do a Ben's junk on it, but it would be so short and so shallow that would it be really worth it? So maybe I'll have to find a second one and do a twofer or something if I find one in the wild. What's my favorite episode I've done of the archive? In general? That's a tough one. I tend not to look back on them too much. Some ones that stand out to me would be the death of analog television, in which I managed to freak out a lot of people thinking I was pulling the plug on the series. And for all the wrong reasons, the Commodore 64 episode, because it seems like that one wound up getting a bit of a backlash. Probably over that 10-minute sketch that I started it with. And another favorite would probably be video magazines. That was one that I had wanted to do for a long time, and it took a really long time to come together. Yeah, I'm sure I have some others. I know I got my good ones and my bad ones, and I tend not to think about them too much. I tend to think about what's the next one going to be. I try and keep looking forward. Could I do an episode on locally produced sketch comedy shows? Sioux Falls used to have such a show called Captain Caribou. That's right, I got your email about that, and I watched it, and that show is absolutely terrible. But then again, how do you riff bad comedy? You can kind of rewrite it, but I still have yet to find the magic formula to deal with bad comedy. Ever consider an OA episode on movies and TV that aired on film strip prints before the 90s? So film chain stuff? I don't know enough about that. I don't know if there's an episode's worth of material there. Is Herb Alpert the Antichrist? No, Chuck Lorre is. I should do an episode on 32-line narrowband television. You can make an NBTV camera out of a Vidicon tube CCTV camera and 2 variable tone generators. Okay, well, that might be a little outside of my techie grasp, but I know I covered at one point, I think only briefly, television on reel-to-reel audio tape. With somebody working something out, a narrowband thing, had to have been prehistoric television. And yeah, it's always one of those things I'd like to see more of. Let's see. Blur or Oasis? I guess by default Oasis, because I can't think of a single Blur song offhand. Where do I look for my old electronics generally? I swear all of the antique op shops around here have nothing but clothes and tacky furniture. Lately it's been more eBay, Flea for electronics, and I've just been having a hell of a time finding electronics at all here. One very strange thing about South Dakota is that people just cling to their electronics here, and it's so rare that you see so much as a VCR in the wild anymore that it's not a pleasant opposite from Colorado. Do I like vocal groups? Temptations, Coasters, etc.? Yeah. I can't think of any overtly vocal groups that I would say that I'm a massive fan of. I'd have to think about that for a bit, but I hear Temptations and stuff on the oldie station and have the greatest hits, and I'm totally cool with it. How can I ask about the box without sounding like an ass? I think I've heard every question about the box at this point. I think I've discussed how it came about. It was because initially Archive, I wasn't going to appear in it at all, and I found that the gag, because I would have a slide of some person like Uncle Fester or something, to represent me in the first couple episodes, and it just didn't work. And then I did that episode very early on where I was behind the pop filter on a microphone pop filter, and wearing a hat, right down here, and just having it be that. And that eventually came back around again. The box was my alternative to not having to appear. And at the same time, way back in the Blip days, 2012, 2013, Blip would get on my ass for being a slideshow, so it was my way of trying to fit in some live action stuff. And it's just kind of stuck. It's just kind of become the signature. And I always have this terrible feeling that if I were to, just lose the box, that where would I go from there? It would shift the comments more towards my looks and less on the stuff that I'm discussing. And every time I think about it, it just seems like it would be far, far more trouble than it would be worth. Can you do a segment on the many 1-900 numbers the UWF had in the 90s? None of it is owned by the WWE, so you should be safe. I can send them to you. I've never been into wrestling, so I don't think I'd be able to bring any insight to that. It's just never been a thing. Take a shot every time he says, "Let's see." If he did, he'd probably be dead by now. So let's see. Have I ever listened to any John Denver songs? Well, I did have that 8-track at one point, and I kind of hung it like a noose from the front of the box. What episode was that? It had to have been the 8-track episode. Either that or Going Analog. Not a big fan. I have that greatest hits, and I have his Christmas album kicking around somewhere. The regular one, not the Muppet one. What's my favorite type of beer? Well, I gave up alcohol back in 2009, but I might tick a few people off by saying this, but I was a PBR sort of guy. I was a Pabst sort of guy. And I never got into the microbrews and the trendy stuff. 1980s West German CDs. Yes, there are some back there, and some Japanese ones as well. Do I like Eric Burdon and the Animals? Yeah, and I think he's coming here. I think he's playing the casino. There's a casino just on the other side of the Iowa border, because I'm right on the tri-state South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa border area. But the last time I heard him, he sounded terrible, and I can't imagine who would be left in the Animals at this point. Just one of those things where it's an oldies act. You got one person and a bunch of hired guns. Let's see. Have I considered finding an alternative video hosting site for the archive as a means of backup? Well, I was holding out hope for VidMe until they went belly up last year, and I was really hoping they'd gain some traction, and I was considering eventually maybe kicking over to them, but obviously that didn't happen. Otherwise, not really. I'm usually able to either duke it out with YouTube or just go back and trim the episode a little. Let's see. I was born in 1976. Would love a Bicentennial Ripoffs episode. Well, I did Bicentennial Fever way back when. I'd have to see if there are any Bicentennial knockoff things out there. How do I like South Dakota so far? It's been an adjustment, a massive adjustment, because I spent 27 years of my life in Colorado. And it's been almost 3 months now, and I'm still not used to the humidity. And when I came here, it was the longest days of the year in mid-June, and the sun wasn't going down to like 10:30 at night, and it was just blowing my mind. And on the weather thing still, back in Colorado, whenever you get that daily cloud cover or rain, it would always be in the afternoon. But here, it's always in the morning. So that's another thing. And it could be 9 o'clock in the morning, and it still feels like it's 4 a.m. But I knew that it was coming. Is it always the same box? Yes. This has been the same box since the first time I used it way back on episode 3. And I had another one kicking around for a while, and this thing is so decrepit at this point. Um, I have to weigh it down now, so I have to keep stuff in here all the time just to keep it from wobbling all over. And it's just become this little game of how long can I keep this box before it completely falls apart. Do I still hate the song Everlasting Love after all these years? Not as much as I used to. I can listen to it now without flames shooting out of my ears. What do I think of my review with Game Show Reviewer? Game Show Reviewer CJ, he's a really talented guy, and the worst thing that could have happened to him was Blip ending, because his show is so not conducive to YouTube, because it's always a Fremantle and Viacom breathing down his neck, and I haven't seen anything from him in a long time. I don't think he does his show anymore, but so much effort that he puts into it, and it always looks so good, and I know it would take him forever to make it. So being able to sit in on that was kind of cool. I think it's a shame that he never really took off the way he should have. But when you have to spend 3 to 6 months per episode, it's very hard to gain traction. Favorite box printout. There used to be an Infinite Ben one, and I think I threw it out. It's from the first season, but it was a picture of me with a picture of me in it, and it went back 3 or 4 degrees, I think. Maybe I need to make another one. I don't know when or how I'd use that. The rarest 8-track I own. I can't think of it. I have a Black Sabbath Paranoid 8-track. I don't know how rare that is, but I've never seen anything else like it. How many beta tapes do I own? I've only got maybe 20 to 25 pre-recorded tapes. But I have, I think, in the neighborhood of 250 off-air tapes or dubs or stuff like that. Do I like Green Day? Not really. I could never get into them. What's the rarest CD I own? Offhand, I know I've got some. I just have to think about it for a while. I have a Billy Field CD, who's an Australian guy who was popular there for a little while in the early 80s. And I've got a CD compilation from Japan of his first 2 albums, and I guess that's pretty stupidly rare. That's the only one I can think of offhand. On vinyl, I have the National Lampoon's Vacation soundtrack, the original one from '83. Is the humidity in South Dakota making it hard for you in terms of your collection, specifically any tape-based format? Not yet. I do have a dehumidifier here, and that thing takes water like crazy. It's a 30 pint, and I empty it every morning, and it's always somewhere between, if it's a drier day, it's still about 1/3 full, and if it's a real humid day, it's about 2/3 full. But I've been really diligent about that dehumidifier. And then also, a lot of my boxes of tapes have the silica gel packets in them, so knock on wood. Well, I do a 2018 Christmas edition of Sergei's Catacomb of Classics. Well, that's up to Sergei, and I don't know if he will, because he's certainly turned my Christmas collection upside down. I don't know how much more he'd find. Pull a Kurt Cobain and keep taping the box until even the tape stops keeping it together. Oh, if you only knew. Wow, so many comments. I was not expecting this. 152 viewers. Do I own any 80s demo bands, like any non-mainstream stuff? Oh, I'm sure I do somewhere. I don't know, did the Monroes count? They were on a little label called Alpha, which was a Japanese label. And when you say demo bands, I'm thinking Hydride from one of the last Colorado episodes. Am I a fan of any sports teams? No, I don't really do sports. I'm actually completely, thoroughly incompetent when it comes to sports. But I will say this, after watching around here, visiting at the holidays and stuff already, the Minnesota Twins and Vikings, because there is no team in South Dakota. You have to go to either, it's like half the state is into Minnesota and the other half is into Nebraska. And I look at them both and I just kind of roll my eyes, because I came from the land of the Broncos. But also conversely, the Nuggets. So I guess I shouldn't be too high and mighty. Where can I find your Patreon? Patreon.com/oddityarchive. Most archive episodes have a link to it in the video description. What's the significance of Jim Barton, the voiceover guy? Worked at WFLD. I don't remember discussing him more than once, and it had to have been one of the Chicago footage episodes. I don't know, what is the significance of Jim Barton? I like his voice. Any updates on the food dehydrator and tapes? Never did get around to baking some of the stuff that I talked about on the tape baking episode, like the Buddy Hackett tape. But that thing puts out so much heat that I only ever want to use it in the winter. So maybe once the weather turns cold, maybe I'll bring it out and bake it and transfer it. And I have some other tapes. I have some audio tapes, cassette tapes even, that need baking. Let's keep on rolling here. I think it's getting to be time to wrap this up. What were some of my favorite cartoon TV shows or animated movies from back in the day? I used to be a pretty devout Garfield and Friends viewer way back when. But my big thing growing up was, looking back on it, maybe I shouldn't have been, but I loved Tex Avery. I loved Droopy. And I've still got tapes, the MGM pre-recorded videotapes of those things. Even though I have all that on DVD now, I just can't bear to get rid of it. Maybe that's where I got some of my sense of humor. I think it's getting to be time to wrap this up here. Well, anyway, thanks for putting up with me, and thanks for putting up with the botched intro and everything. This has gone a lot better than I thought it would. And yeah, I'm going to say good night to everybody. Good night.